Hello everyone and welcome back to the Entertainment Minds Complicated People. My name is Marcus and today I am joined by your host, Isobel.
Yo, yo, yo.
And on today's episode we are going to be talking about none other than Rick and Morty. So,
Hey.
anyone that knows what Rick and Morty is knows that it is probably one of the best shows, animated shows on television. So, Rick and Morty has actually recently just released its fifth season. I missed its premiere, and goddamn, I hate all four because things expire after a while instead of having the whole series on there. So we could only get 2 episodes. I was like, I'm not spoiling that for myself, so I gotta wait till it comes out on Netflix or reruns. We're going to be talking about Rick and Morty seasons 1 to 4, as they are the ones that we have watched and are the ones that are currently available on Netflix. So, Rick and Morty premiered a couple of years ago now on Adult Swim, and Adult Swim is basically just where all the adult cartoons kind of run. I could be mistaken if I say that it's like late night Cartoon Network, but I could be wrong. But yeah, it is brilliant. It is brilliant. And it is created by Dan Harmon. Now, if you don't know who Dan Harmon is, he is also the creator of one of my favorite sitcoms, Community. So, Community follows a bunch of goofy and wacky characters in a community college. And that was written, and their tagline was, their kind of motto was 60s in the movie. Still waiting on that movie. But Dan Harmon basically created that, and he did pretty well apart from season 4 when he got fired. But otherwise, it wasn't too bad. And then he went off after creating a really successful sitcom, and he decided to create Rick and Morty. Now, it depends on which order you've watched these in. Depends on which one you'd know first. Like, I would instantly recognize Community, but I was also aware he made this. So I was like, well, it's only natural to watch Rick and Morty. Now I finished watching Rick and Morty. I binged the entire 4 seasons in like a week, so, I mean, why not? And anyway, that ended up with me being absolutely obsessed with Rick and Morty. Now, Rick and Morty has the main characters, which is the father, Jerry, the mother, Beth. You got Summer, who is Morty's sister. Morty is, unsurprisingly, the son of Beth and Jerry. And then you got their grandpa, who is Rick. So you've got some extra characters, which we will mention, like Mr. Poopy Butthole and Mr. Meeseeks, who are very good characters indeed. And pretty much the show follows mainly in the first few seasons just Rick and Morty, but then later on the characters develop and you begin to see more of Beth and more of Jerry, and Summer even tags along on some of their adventures. So I have a list of questions here, and I'm going to be going through them just like I did last week's episode. Let's start off with Isobel. Who is your favourite character and why?
It's gotta be Rick. Reason being, I like how he just doesn't care, like, at all, and he's so chill over, like, everything. I feel like I can definitely relate to him.
Yeah. Rick is definitely, like, as you say, he's a very relatable character for some people. Like that's the thing about Rick and Morty. You either relate to one or the other. Like you're either that person that always panics in situations, or you're the one that's just like, "Wow, I'm gonna die anyway," kind of thing.
Yeah, it's
But
going wrong right in front of me. Am I gonna do anything about it? Nah, it'll be fine.
yeah, like he just his nonchalant attitude. Like he has this attitude where he just doesn't care. Like he'll be getting shot at and he'll be like, "Come on, Morty, do this," and Morty will be like, "No, no, Rick, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this." And he's like, "Just do it, Morty." It's
Yeah.
he doesn't really care for anyone else, which is or at least in
Hmm.
the first few seasons anyway. He kind of develops and it kind of becomes more apparent that he does actually love his family. But yeah, it's brilliant. It's like he is a brilliant character, and I would have to say he's definitely my favorite too. But side note, Mr. Meeseeks, also a very good character. Like who just doesn't love Mr. Meeseeks? He kind of reminds me of oh god, I had it in my head a second ago. Like there's this character in something I watched. and they're just like highly suicidal. Oh, do you know what? Do you know what? It's not a show. It reminds me of Mr. Muffin. Like Mr. Meeseeks reminds me of Mr. Muffin from Astef movie because he just wants to die. Like he completes his task and he's like, I want to die. Like do you know who I'm on about as well?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. He's just that kind of character. He's like, well, I want to die. So yeah,
Hmm.
Mr. Meeseeks. I mean, what are your opinions on Mr. Meeseeks?
I didn't really like that episode when we were first introduced to him. I just thought it was kind of repetitive and just unnecessary, to be honest. A little bit annoying, but that's just me. I do kind of like what you were just saying there. How when he's done his task, he wants to kill himself. That's. Hmm. I see what you're saying with that. That was probably the only main interesting part about it for me.
Yeah. I mean, the first episode where you get introduced to him and they trying to help Jerry with golf. I found myself relating to that in some situations. Like there's sometimes when like I'll be playing as a team in like some I'll be playing Rainbow Six Siege as a team or Rocket League. Don't kill me. Rocket League as a team, and we'll be like doing the same thing over and over again and just not able to do it. And we just always someone will in the group will send that Mr. Meeseeks video because it's just like we're trying to do it over and over and over again, and we just joke about calling Mr. Meeseeks, and that's what it'd end up being like. Not exactly the most relatable topic for everyone, but that's how it goes for us sometimes.
Yes. Why does my yes sound like that? I don't know.
Favorite villain in the show. So technically, there aren't that many villains. Um, because every episode, unlike a lot of other shows where it's completely linear, each episode takes after the other. It's one of those shows where each episode has its own beginning, middle, and end, and then also has a linear plot running through each season. So I wouldn't necessarily say there's any villains, but more. And I know this is people are going to call me out on this and say antagonist and villain are the same thing, but there's a difference between I think a straight up villain and an antagonist who kind of doesn't help the situation but isn't outright evil. In terms of villains, now I there's this episode. I believe it's in the first season when we first meet Mr. Poopy Butthole, and that episode in particular is there's this parasite, and it kind of it infects like your brain or something and makes you believe that you've seen people before, and they change into people, and they implant memories, and then their goal is like to take over the world or whatever. And I think that's just one of my favorite kind of moments, like a villainous moment, because they're just so it's just such a good episode, and I think it's so well written. Like there's so many of them, and they do so much, and the memories, and you're trying to constantly decipher who they have and haven't met. And of course, you think you know because you see Mr. Poopy Butthole, and you're like, I've never seen him before, which is obviously the. I guess I guess for in a way he's Mr. Poopy Butthole because he's the butt of that joke because he is the butt of that entire episode because you're constantly going, it's Mr. Poopy Butthole. He's not been there. He's not been there. Turns out he's a real character. Just we haven't seen him in any of the episodes. He does later reappear. But I think that episode in particular was written so well that the villains were just I think they came across in the right way. They weren't overly annoying, and there were a lot of them, and there's moments where you're getting frustrated, but frustrated in the right way of like, he's the villain, just you know it. You know it. Bit of dramatic irony. But there isn't anything where you're kind of going like, oh, just get it over with. This is boring. Just get it over with. Like, so that's personally where I would say my favorite villain slash antagonist would be. What about you, Isabel?
I say the Zagurians are probably like very interesting because I like how they put Rick and Morty in like a simulation into thinking that they escaped when they didn't. I thought that was very clever actually. But I think that's all I can really say about it. Thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I have to agree with you as well. That is also another great episode because it's all about them. They're all sort of going after one another. Like he's like, oh, they do this to me all the time. Again, one of the classic Rick moments where he's just like, oh well, they've done this to me before and I've always escaped. And then he escapes, and it becomes kind of Inception, where you can't tell what's real and what's fake, and it's just kind of cool. It's like the Matrix as well. Like they're just in a simulation, and then they keep going into different simulations, and they just can't seem to find a way out before eventually they escape. And the title of that episode was M Night Shyamalan. So if anyone knows M Night Shyamalan, you get the reference. But it's yeah, it's definitely a good episode, and I think again I think it's just one of the more cleverly written episodes. Although I think all of the episodes are cleverly written. So the next question would be, what is your favorite moment in Rick and Morty? So I will go first. So in terms of moments, it actually happens repeatedly, and it would be interdimensional cable. So anyone that has actually seen Community will kind of get where this concept comes from. So each season in Community, or almost every season, they had a paintball episode where the entire college would go into a paintball game, and it would just be like you had Modern Warfare, which was the season 6 paintball, and then you had the 2-part, I think season 2, cowboy themed, Old West themed paintball episode, and so that was like a recurring joke, I guess. And then you move into Rick and Morty, where the same concept applies with the interdimensional cable, where once almost every season, like Community, they had this one episode where they would repeat kind of gags, and it was pretty much where they would just watch interdimensional cable, interdimensional television. And so, pretty much with yeah, interdimensional cable, they'd be watching television from the galaxy, and you'd find all these weird and wacky and wonderful shows, and they all had their own sort of unique jokes, and you had like the planet where everyone's faces are bums, and you had that really long door advert. Like I don't know if anyone remembers that one, but there's this really long door advert, and they just sit there and watch it and then turn it off. And it's just such a good episode. Again, I think it was really done. I think it was done quite well. And again, it's one of those recurring jokes, which I think was one of the better things about Rick and Morty, and Dan Harmon's ability. Also, I feel like I haven't given enough credit to Justin Roiland as well, who I believe also voices Rick, but is also one of the creators. But yeah, it pretty much they did this kind of episode, and I think each sort of every like it would keep repeating. And there was that time when what was it, when Jerry was in hospital and he had to get his removed, almost had to have his removed to save someone else's life because your is like that heart. But then you have that one, and they end up sitting in the lobby of the lobby of the hotel. What was I on about there? They sit in the waiting room of the hospital, and pretty much they just sat there looking at the TV, and then interdimensional cable comes on. Woo! Although that isn't actually, I don't think, the entire plot of the episode, but interdimensional cable is kind of featured in there. But it's definitely a spectacle and something that you look forward to every season. I don't actually know whether season 5 has interdimensional cable again, but yeah, it's brilliant. I really love it. Isabel, what would you say your favorite moment is?
I liked it when they Rick and Morty took Jerry to Jerry daycare. I thought that was kind of funny because Jerry wasn't like really sure whether he liked it or not, because like he kept getting distracted by all of like the things he liked there, and conversations with himself. But then every so often he'd like remember that he needed to get out, and it reminds me of me so much. It's so funny. Yeah, I like that. I thought that was really good. I like the different dimensions they have. They're also like they're very cleverly thought out.
Yeah, I think the um just you just mentioned dimensions there. It's also worth mentioning that Rick and Morty are not actually their own dimensions of Rick and Morty, which just kind of complicates things even more. So if you ever want to think about the lore of Rick and Morty aren't the real Rick and Morty of their dimension. So just one for you there. But yeah, Jerry Daycare, brilliant. Jerry Daycare is one of the other ones I thought of as well. He definitely, as you say, he gets distracted a lot by himself and the things he likes. And the best thing is that Rick knows that it's there, and it is just this. It's as if this specific Rick has done it before, but I don't think he has because Jerry would have remembered. But they all have their ticket. And he's like, oh, was it to Morty? Don't lose the ticket, otherwise we won't know which one's which. And then at the end, you don't really know which Jerry is which because he loses the ticket, I think. So who knows? Maybe they picked up the wrong Jerry.
Perhaps I did.
Then you have the next question. So next question then, which would be, who would you say is the most annoying character in Rick and Morty, Isabel?
Yeah. What was his name?
Meeseeks.
Meeseeks. I think you can kind of understand why from what I was saying before, like the repetitiveness of it. And his voice. I don't know. I just really couldn't sit well with that character. The whole idea of him threw me off a little bit. And when he duplicated that many times, it was just like a noise. An annoying noise. So
I would have to agree with you on Mr. Meeseeks. And the only reason why I would agree with you on Mr. Meeseeks, despite him being a favorite of mine, just like Gon was in the Hunter x Hunter episode, he's also, I can see why Mr. Meeseeks would also be annoying because that episode in particular, I think some of it did get a little bit repetitive, as you said, but he is, I think, I think he's deliberately annoying, which is why I find him annoying. I don't find him annoying because he's unintentionally annoying. I think he just is supposed to be an annoying character, which is why I find him annoying.
yes.
So, what would you say the best season is of Rick and Morty?
Well, I'd say it's probably gonna be which was the season where Beth and Jerry got divorced? Because I swear,
I think that was season 3.
yeah, season 3. Isn't that when Jerry mostly came on a few adventures with Rick and Morty?
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked him. I liked him with Rick and Morty. I the little what would you say? The bonding they had and how he was always so like clueless and everything and he was just casually going along with it. You know, I like that. I like that.
Yeah. I'll agree with you on that as well. Season 3 was definitely the better one. Yeah, so season 3 had like the best character development. And also Jerry, as you said, like he appears on more adventures, and there's also, I think, the season as well where he goes out and dates that alien, that yeah, Kiara, I think it is the Kiara the alien. It's kind of funny,
Yeah.
but and she's kind of dating him to get back at her ex, and then he's dating her to get back at Beth, and then at the end of that season, they'd get back together. But then the whole clone thing happens. The Clone Wars, as I'm going to call it from now on, because that sounds like an appropriate title. But yeah, season 3, definitely one of the better seasons. Season 1 is just good because season 1 of a show is always good. Like, it's when you're new to things and the characters are new, you're new, and you're seeing it for the first time. Like, that's a pure moment right there. If you could imagine what a Rick and Morty adventure would be like, what would be your ideal Rick and Morty adventure?
Going to a dimension full of me's to see the different versions of me's, that would be epic. Because then I could see like multiple different personalities and see like which ones suit me or don't suit me. I don't know.
Is my ideal Rick and Morty adventure would be something sort of similar. Like I would go around and I would go to the different realities, and I'd like to see the different ways that I live my life. And then I'd also what I'd do is I would like kidnap myself, and then I would be in my life for that one day, and I'd see how different it is.
Oh yes, Yeah, you got it. You got it.
And that concludes today's episode. If you'd like to see more of us, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at MindsPeoplePC. We also have a Discord server, which will be linked in the description of today's episode, so we have a lovely, friendly, welcoming community. If you'd like to go over there, check us out, maybe say hi. We'd love to see you over there. We also have a YouTube channel, which is the same name as the podcast, so if you went over there, give us a like and a subscribe, we'd really appreciate that. And also drop a comment in the comments section if you'd like to see any other episodes. And we also have an email, which is contact.complicatedpeople@gmail.com, so if you have anything to say to us and you aren't over on YouTube, shoot us an email over there and we will get back to you and may even feature your response on this podcast. And not only that, but we also have a website which will also be linked in the description of today's episode, so if you would like to go over there and if you don't know what to watch, we'll recommend you a few episodes, and it also tells you a little bit more about the podcast. And also, if we have any sources from any of our recent episodes, they'll also be linked in the description on the website, in our sources page, so at least you can see where we're getting our information from. So just before we go, I'd just like to thank Isabel for joining me today. Thank you, Isabel.
That's alright, man.
And I'd like to thank you guys at home for listening, and we will see you again next week. Thank you everyone for listening, and goodbye.
Bye bye.